Hey guys, tonight's story takes you to the most dangerous place holiness ever touched. It's Passover week in ancient Jerusalem, and it sucks. The crowds will crush you, the priests will rob you, the soldiers will kill you if you blink wrong. You came for salvation. But what you'll get is blood in the streets, rot in the wells, and a front row seat to the worst day of your life. So before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake up barefoot on limestone, sticky with sweat and sand. Your back is bent in the shape of the stone beneath you. Your mouth is dry, your tongue thick with the taste of ash and old bread. A fly buzzes against your ear, then disappears into the folds of your tunic. You don't bother swatting. You know better than to waste the energy. The sun isn't even up yet, and already it feels like you're lying in the breath of something cruel. It's Passover week, and Jerusalem is swollen like a wound, bloated with strangers, prophets, blood, and expectation. You sit up slowly, spine cracking like dry wood. The ground is gritty. Dust is everywhere, in your hair, under your fingernails, caked into the lines of your palms. It's in your eyes too, because when you blink, it scratches. Your tunic is coarse, unwashed, and smells like sheep. Your feet ache from yesterday, or maybe the day before. You've lost count. There's no such thing as rest here. Not during the festival, not in the city of God. The alley you slept in isn't empty. Someone is already urinating against the far wall. Someone else mutters prayers between hiccups. A child sobs into his own knees. The sun is just beginning to show itself. A dull smear behind the rooftops, gold bleeding through the cracks. You wish it would wait. You're not ready for it to burn you again. The noise starts early. Wooden wheels grinding on stone, hooves clattering. A woman shouting for her son. Chickens screeching. Someone hawking figs with the voice of a demon. Someone else coughing like they're trying to pull up their own lungs. Everything echoes in this place, not just sound, but smell. The reek of animal dung, human sweat, crushed olives, and spoiled wine sits heavy in the air. It's the scent of holiness. It's the scent of rot. You rise, brushing crumbs from your chest. You haven't eaten since yesterday's crust of barley and whatever you found floating in the stew pot. You check your pouch, 3 coppers. Not enough for anything sacred, but maybe enough for something that won't kill you immediately. You step into the narrow street. It's barely dawn, and already it's packed. Pilgrims wrapped in linen, merchants pulling carts, barefoot priests gliding by with expressions that say, "I speak to God, and he prefers I not notice you." You walk toward the noise, the crowd pulling you like a current. The city is alive. Not in a joyful way, but in the way a stomach is alive before it vomits. Everyone's talking. Everyone's watching. Everyone's pretending not to notice the soldiers. You see them at the corner, where the road widens briefly before squeezing back into chaos. Romans, 3 of them. Their armor shines like polished cruelty. Their spears glint in the sun. One of them is drinking something that smells sharp and sour. They don't smile. They don't need to. One of them makes eye contact with a boy standing too long near a fruit stall. The soldier lifts his hand. The boy runs. It doesn't matter. They'll catch him later. You don't look them in the eyes. You learned that yesterday, and the day before. You keep moving. A beggar blocks your path, one hand outstretched, the other gone entirely. Just a twisted stump of bone and cloth. His eyes are cloudy. His breath smells like old milk and old death. You drop a coin in his bowl and step around him. He doesn't thank you, just mutters something about mercy and rain. Someone shouts in Aramaic, someone else in Greek. You barely understand either. But the tone is always the same, urgency, tinged with dread. You pass a group of women hunched over baskets, sorting lentils with fingers calloused and red. A man is squatting beside a dog, feeding it bits of lamb fat while staring up at the Temple Mount like it owes him something. The sky is clearer now, the light harsher. Everything looks more real in the morning, and that's not always a good thing. The cracks in the stone, the bruises on people's arms, the dried blood near the livestock pens, the flies. God, the flies, gathering wherever something is soft and dying. You reach the market square. It's louder here, busier. There's a man selling doves for sacrifice, 5 times the normal price. He doesn't haggle. He doesn't need to. Behind him, a stall drips with fresh lamb organs, the butcher's apron stained dark enough to blend with the shadows. The butcher is singing. You don't recognize the tune, but it sounds like it ends badly. Someone brushes your shoulder hard. You turn. A woman. Dirty face, wild eyes. She looks at you like she's trying to remember if you're real. Then she moves on, mumbling something about the end. You look around. No one else noticed her. Or maybe they've learned not to react. Madness is just another form of prophecy here. The temple looms above it all, white and gold in the morning sun. Beautiful, imposing, distant. You can smell the incense from here, and beneath it the smell of burning fat and singed hair. You can hear the prayers too, though they sound more like instructions than praise. Your feet hurt. Your stomach twists. Your skin itches from dust and heat. You wanted to see the city of God. And now that you're in it, you're starting to understand. This isn't a place of peace. It's a place of transaction. Pain for purity. Coin for forgiveness. Silence for survival. And it's only morning. There's a question you don't realize you need to ask until it's too late. Not a theological one. Not a philosophical one. A practical one. Where, in God's holy, overcrowded, sun-scorched city, are you supposed to piss? You've been walking for half an hour now. Your stomach a knot. Your bladder tighter. And that's when you notice it. The smell. Not the sweet incense floating from the temple courtyards, but the sharper, ruder one rising from the cracks in the street. It's everywhere. It sticks to your sandals. It rises in waves. It wraps around your ankles like a curse. Human waste, dog shit, donkey droppings, chicken feathers, blood, and something you can't identify but deeply regret stepping in. And the worst part? This isn't the bad part of town. This is town. The alley you duck into for relief is already occupied by 3 clay pots full of what you hope is just last night's wine gone bad. But the flies know better. You back away trying to breathe through your mouth. Bad idea. Now it tastes like sin. You consider slipping behind a stack of firewood near a bakery, but a woman is already squatting there, her robe lifted, eyes daring anyone to interrupt. She doesn't blink. She doesn't care. She's lived here too long to feel shame anymore. You bow your head and walk on. Jerusalem wasn't designed for this many people. Not all at once. Not like this. Passover week has bloated the city beyond recognition. Every home, every rooftop, every stable is crammed. Pilgrims from Galilee, Samaria, Judea, Rome, Cyprus, all flooding the city with faith, livestock, and questionable hygiene habits. The result is predictable. Chamber pots dumped into alleys, buckets overturned onto rooftops, drains clogged with grease and hair and sacrifice runoff. You don't know where it goes. You just know it doesn't go away. You pass a boy crouched over a gutter, pushing what looks like a dead rat with a stick. The rat is missing an eye. The boy isn't wearing shoes. You don't ask questions. The mikveh pools are supposed to be sacred. Ritual baths, cleansing waters, pure, blessed spaces for washing away impurity before prayer or sacrifice. That's the theory. In practice, they're warm, greenish, and filled with enough human skin flakes to count as soup. You lean over one and catch a whiff of mildew, sweat, and something metallic. Behind you, a man slips out of the water and dries himself with the bottom of his robe. He nods at you like this is normal. It is. You keep moving. You finally find a corner. Not private, not ideal, but functional. You check for Roman patrols. None. You check for judgmental locals. Just one old woman feeding pigeons and muttering to herself in what might be Latin. Good enough. You shift your tunic and prepare for release. Too late. A goat appears. Just walks up and stares at you. Unblinking. You pause mid-process, and now you've attracted attention. A nearby child points. The goat bleats. The old woman mutters louder. You button yourself back up and retreat with what little dignity you didn't bring with you to begin with. Welcome to the spiritual capital of the known world, where you can buy a spotless lamb for temple sacrifice, but you can't find a clean place to relieve yourself without sharing the moment with livestock and half the neighborhood. Public toilets? Not a thing. Latrines, if you're lucky and wealthy and Roman. The rest of the city uses what nature provides. Corners, stairwells, abandoned carts, the shadow of the temple wall if you're feeling brave or suicidal. You pass a stone wall slick with streaks of something yellow and ancient. It hasn't rained in weeks. The smell confirms it. You spot a drainage channel running beneath the steps of a synagogue. A small stream trickles down it, winding past bits of straw, feathers, and what you really hope is animal offal. It drains somewhere into the Kidron Valley, or so people say. But for now, it's just one more stream to step over, or into. You try to leap it. You don't make it. Your sandal lands with a wet slap. Your toes sink slightly. You gag. Somewhere above you, a priest is reciting psalms. You wonder if there's a verse for this moment. Something about trials, or cleanliness, or endurance through filth. You limp away, foot squelching in your own regret. You're not even halfway through the morning, and your dignity is circling the drain alongside the rest of Jerusalem's hopes for hygiene. A street vendor calls out behind you. Dates, figs, bread with only a little sand. You keep walking. You can't think about food right now. Not after what your foot just baptized itself in. You pass a Roman soldier leaning against a column, eyes half-lidded, mouth open in a lazy smile. There's a stain near his boot. Still wet. Still steaming. He looks at you like you're the animal. Like this is his city. And in a way, it is. The Romans don't just rule Jerusalem. They leak all over it. By the time you circle back to your starting point, your bladder has given up. The urge is gone, replaced by a dull ache and a vague sense of spiritual failure. You sit on a sun-warmed step and try to remember the point of all this. Pilgrimage, repentance, renewal. That's what they told you. Come to Jerusalem, be made whole. But nobody said anything about where to go when nature calls. Nobody warned you that the holy city flows with as much filth as it does faith, that every stairwell is soaked in sin, that the mikvehs are sacred only until someone bleeds in them. You adjust your tunic. You swat a fly. You try not to think about your foot. It's going to be a long day. Your stomach growls loud enough to make the goat beside you flinch. You haven't eaten since yesterday, or was it the day before? It doesn't matter. Time blurs when everything tastes like chalk, and everything costs more than your dignity. Welcome to breakfast in the city of God, a place where hunger is holy, and forgiveness comes with a price tag. You pass a vendor with a tray of round barley loaves, each one the color and consistency of a dried-out sandal. He's swatting flies with a piece of parchment that probably used to be a love letter. You point to the smallest loaf. He eyes your coins, weighs your worth, and hands you the one with the most visible mold. You don't argue. You're too hungry to be proud. The bread is hard. Not crunchy, not chewy. Hard. Like it was baked during Solomon's reign and rediscovered last week. You bite in and something grits between your molars. Sand. Always sand. It's in the grinding stones, in the flour, in your teeth. Every mouthful feels like a tiny sin against your enamel. Ancient Egyptians would call this breakfast. You call it a punishment. You look for oil to soften the loaf. There's a stall a few feet away selling clay cups of it. Thick, greenish, and already beginning to separate. You hand over another coin. The vendor doesn't say thank you. He just nods like he's doing you a favor and goes back to arguing with a man over the price of fermented fish. You take a sip of the oil. It tastes like regret and overripe olives. You drizzle it on your bread anyway and chew like someone preparing for crucifixion. Nearby, a young man is selling dried fish wrapped in old linen. The fish smells strong enough to draw flies from other neighborhoods. He waves a strip of palm frond over them like it makes a difference. You ask how much. He names a number. You laugh. He doesn't. You move on. It's Passover week. Every food stall in the city is jacked up like the end is near, which, judging by the prophet yelling about fire near the gate, might not be that far off. The prices are absurd. The figs are half ripe. The nuts are wormy. The dates are bruised and melting. And the wine? Don't even think about the wine. It's been watered down 6 times and taxed by both the temple authorities and the Roman collectors. By the time it reaches your lips, it's more like holy disappointment with a hint of vinegar. And yet, people buy it. Because even bitter wine is better than the taste of your own mouth. You spot a boy selling pomegranate seeds out of a cracked bowl. They're red, glistening, probably stolen. You consider buying a handful just to remember what pleasure tastes like. But then you remember you still need money to pay the temple tax, and maybe bribe a guard if things go south later. You walk away. Hunger is easier to endure than the consequences of running out of coins in a city where justice comes with a Roman accent and a wooden club. You find a quiet corner behind a tannery and sit with your stale bread and bitter oil. You try to pray before eating, but your words stick in your throat. Not because you don't believe, but because you're not sure anyone's listening. And if they are, they probably want their cut. You chew in silence. Around you, the city hums with morning chaos. Donkeys bray. Merchants scream. A woman chases a child through a maze of baskets. Somewhere nearby, someone is already bleeding. Not from violence, just from life. The kind of daily wound you don't even flinch at anymore. A Roman passes by with a skewer of meat. Real meat. Sizzling, glistening, dripping fat onto the stones. He doesn't even look at you. Just tears into it with the boredom of a man who's never known hunger. The smell makes your mouth flood with saliva and shame. You look away. Next to you, a man in a torn robe picks at a cluster of grapes he probably didn't buy. He looks at you and smiles with red-stained teeth. "Blessed are those who hunger," he says, like it's a joke or a threat. You don't respond. You finish your bread. Every bite feels like a compromise between need and nausea. And yet, this is better than some. There are children with nothing, widows who lick the inside of olive jars, travelers who spend their last coin on a dove for sacrifice and then go home starving, hoping God accepts piety in place of calories. Because here in Jerusalem, breakfast isn't a rite, it's a reward. For those with coin, for those who can afford purity, for those who haven't pissed off the wrong priest or the wrong patrol. You eat if you're lucky. You eat if you're invisible. You eat if the gods or the guards don't notice you today. You scrape the last crumbs from your palm and lick your fingers. They taste like dust and olive pits. You look at the bread seller again. He's laughing now, probably at something the fishmonger said, or maybe just at the absurdity of it all. Selling food to people desperate enough to buy anything that doesn't crawl. You stand. You wipe your hands on your tunic. Your stomach still aches, but it's quieter now, like it's resigned to the reality. You won't be full today. You won't be clean. You won't be safe. But for now, you've eaten. And in Jerusalem, during Passover, that's enough to call it a blessing. You wander toward the temple, hoping, foolishly, for peace, something quiet, something sacred, something that might smell less like donkey piss and more like incense. What you find instead is a marketplace that's dressed in holy robes and speaks in the language of coin. It starts with the noise, not the hum of reverent voices or the hush of prayer. This is sharper, louder. It's the sound of shouting, of deals being struck, of wooden cages clacking against stone, of metal on metal, coins slamming into scales, falling into bowls, slipping into fists. Forgiveness here sounds like a street fight between accountants. You pass under the colonnade and the air shifts. Not cleaner, just different. Thicker, denser with the smell of burned offerings and body heat. You hear the flutter of wings before you see the cages. Dozens stacked haphazardly, trembling with white doves. Their feathers are filthy, their eyes frantic. They cry out like they already know the price of holiness. A man with grease on his cheeks and a prayer shawl over his shoulder gestures to them. 2 for a half shekel, he says, purity guaranteed. He doesn't blink. You keep moving, elbow to elbow with pilgrims from everywhere. Men from Galilee with sun-baked skin. Traders from Sidon wearing gold rings and thin patience. Children wide-eyed and sticky with dates. You're all funneled toward the same place, the court of the Gentiles, where the line between worship and commerce has been trampled flat by generations of sandals and ambition. There are tables everywhere, some for grain, some for oil, some for incense or wood, or whatever other item the temple says you need to get God's attention. But most are for money. Rows of men hunched behind tables stacked with coins. Drachmas, tetradrachms, shekels, denarii, all gleaming, clinking, shifting like metal waves. The money changers. You step closer. A man with a white beard and a stare like granite waves you forward. "Roman coin not accepted," he says. "Blasphemous, pagan image. Must be exchanged for Tyrian silver." He gestures to a tray of coins stamped with Melkart, the Phoenician god who somehow passed the priesthood's inspection. "Temple currency," he says, "wholly approved." You place a coin down. He picks it up like it's sticky, squints at it, bites it, snorts. Not pure, he mutters. 3 of these for 1 of mine. You blink. That's robbery. You open your mouth to protest, but he's already moved on to the next pilgrim, shouting prices like a fishmonger at closing hour. Behind him, a priest in gold-threaded robes watches the crowd from beneath a linen canopy. He's not sweating. Of course he's not. His eyes skim the crowd like he's reading a ledger. You wonder how many of these vendors pay him directly. You wonder how much it costs to rent a table in God's courtyard. You keep walking, stepping around children, carts, stray feathers, and one old man passed out beside a pile of broken clay jars. The clatter never stops. Coins falling like rain. Doves shrieking like they know they're about to be wrung out for someone else's sins. You pass a woman arguing with a merchant about the price of a lamb. He's for my son, she says. His first pilgrimage. Please. The merchant shrugs. Then it's a memory worth paying for. You try to get closer to the temple steps. Maybe inside the gates it's different. Maybe that's where the silence is. But a hand stops you. A priest's assistant, younger than you, dressed cleaner than anyone has a right to be in this place. He holds out his hand, palm up. Offering? He asks. Not a question, a demand. You fumble for a coin. He weighs it, literally, places it on a small scale dangling from his belt. He frowns, pockets it, and waves you through. You're not sure if you've been blessed or mugged. Inside the temple courtyard, the noise dims. Not because it's quieter, but because the walls are taller. The sound echoes now, bounces back at you, holiness amplified. You see more priests, more linen, more gold, more animals waiting to die. You see the altar and beyond it, the entrance to the inner sanctuary where only the chosen go. You don't even look directly at it. You're not pure enough. No one is. That's why the marketplace outside never closes. You stand still, watching, listening. A man beside you sighs. Do you feel it? He asks. You want to say yes, but all you feel is exhaustion. All you hear is math disguised as prayer. Forgiveness measured in ounces and silver. A child tugs at his mother's sleeve, pointing at a priest swinging a censer. Is that God? He whispers. The mother hushes him quickly. Don't speak like that, she says, her voice thin. Just pay and be still. You leave before the next round of chanting starts. Outside, the money changers are still shouting. The dove seller is now down to 1 cage. A Roman patrol watches from the gate, eyes heavy, hands on hilts. You walk away from the temple with your stomach still hollow, your purse lighter, and your spirit unsettled. This was supposed to be the holiest place on earth. And maybe it is. But if so, then holiness sounds like coin against coin, smells like blood and feathers, and looks a lot like a business. You came seeking mercy. But in Jerusalem, during Passover, mercy has a price. And you'd better have exact change. You finally see it. The second temple. It rises like a mirage, solid, sunlit, and impossible. The limestone glows white against the blue sky, polished smooth by centuries of hands that were allowed closer than yours. The stairs ripple with sandals. The courtyards churn with bodies. The gates yawn open, not as an invitation, but as a challenge. It's bigger than you imagined, not just in height, but in presence. The temple doesn't sit in the city. It rules it. From its mount, it stares down at the chaos, at the stalls and beggars, the prophets and soldiers, the filth, the noise, the blood. It sees all, and it judges. You make your way toward it, shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the pilgrims. Some whisper prayers, some singing. Some just walk with eyes downcast, already shrinking under the weight of the place. You should feel holy. You should feel something. But all you feel is small. The steps are steep and wide, worn by millions of feet, some alive, some long buried. As you climb, the air changes, not cleaner, just thicker, filled with smoke and sweat and expectation. The closer you get, the more you realize this is not a sanctuary. This is a machine. A great divine engine that eats animals, spits out ash, and trades blood for absolution. At the top of the steps, guards scan the crowd. Temple guards, not Romans, though they share the same look, the same posture, the same authority that makes your spine straighten without permission. One of them eyes your tunic, your sandals, your face. You brace for a question. None comes. He looks through you like fog. You don't matter enough to be interrogated. The outer court is a boiling cauldron of humanity. People are lined up with sacrifices, doves, lambs, goats, depending on how guilty they feel and how deep their purses go. There's a smell here that never leaves. Burnt flesh, singed hair, a kind of sacred barbecue that's been going for centuries. You try not to gag. That would be impolite. Priests walk past you in robes so clean it feels like an insult. White linen, gold threads, tassels that never touch the dirt. Their beards are oiled. Their eyes are elsewhere. One recites a prayer without looking up. Another counts coins as he walks. You wonder if he remembers what the words mean. You wonder if he cares. You move forward, drawn by the rhythm of it all. The prayers, the bleeding, the chanting, the steady roar of flame behind the altar walls. You see a line of men offering up grain in baskets, others holding bowls of blood like they're presenting wine. The priests receive it without flinching. They know what they're doing. This is routine. This is duty. This is what keeps the world from falling apart. Or so they say. You try to pray. You try to speak. But the words dry up in your throat. Here, under these towering walls, your voice doesn't feel like it belongs. You're not sure who would listen. You're not sure you'd be heard over the clanging of bronze and the crackle of fire. You look up, at the columns, at the gates, at the thick curtain behind which the Holy of Holies lies. The innermost room, the place where God himself is said to dwell. No one goes in, not even the high priest except once a year, and even then, he enters with a rope tied around his ankle, just in case he dies from being too close to the divine. They say God's presence is in there, heavy, blinding, real. You believe it. And yet, part of you wonders if that curtain hides more than holiness. Maybe it hides absence, or worse, indifference. You take a step closer. A priest's hand stops you. Not rough, not kind, just final. This area is restricted, he says without looking. You nod and back away. You don't belong here. You never did. You retreat to the outer court and sit on a stone bench, half in shadow. From here you can see it all. The lines, the blood, the smoke, the spectacle. It's theater, ritual, commerce, a divine assembly line. You start to realize something. This isn't a house of prayer. It's a fortress. The thick walls weren't made to invite. They were made to separate. The holy from the unholy, the pure from the impure, the chosen from everyone else, you included, especially you. You watch a boy drag a goat toward the altar, both of them trembling. His father walks beside him, eyes hard. The priest waits, hands ready, blade hidden in the folds of his robe. The goat bleats once, then silence, then smoke. Above the temple gates is a golden vine, twisting across the marble, glinting in the sun. It's supposed to represent Israel, fruitful, divine, chosen. You wonder how much gold it took. You wonder who paid for it. You wonder how many mouths went hungry to keep it shining. You rise to leave. The bench is warm beneath you. The crowd continues to flow in, desperate for favor, for forgiveness, for something they can't name but hope to buy. You step away from the gate, down the steps, back into the filth and heat and noise. And as you go, you realize the temple doesn't need your prayer. It needs your sacrifice. And if you have none to give, then you're just one more shadow outside the walls. A shadow passes over you, slow and deliberate, not the kind cast by a cloud, or the temple walls, or some wandering bird overhead. This shadow walks. It creaks. It smells of iron and oiled leather. And when it stops on you. You don't look up. Not fully. Just a glance. Enough to catch the edge of a red tunic, the shimmer of bronze scales, the black handle of a whip resting like a sleeping snake at the soldier's waist. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. His mere presence rearranges the street. People shift, shuffle, disappear. Mothers pull children behind their skirts. Merchants suddenly remember they left something boiling. Everyone gets smaller. Rome is here. They're always here. The soldier moves on, boots thudding with purpose, each step spelling out the law in a language older than Latin. Don't test us. You breathe again. That was close. Not that you did anything wrong, but wrong doesn't mean much to a man with a license to kill and a hangover. The Roman patrol stalks the marketplace like they own it, which, technically, they do. 3 of them today, maybe 4. Tall, stone-faced, helmets tucked under their arms in a gesture that almost looks casual, until you remember the last time someone ran. You didn't see where the man ended up, only the blood trail, and the way the soldiers laughed as they wiped their blades clean. They scan the crowd with the boredom of predators who haven't eaten yet. Not hungry, just waiting for something to twitch. A child bumps into one, looks up, stammers something in Aramaic. The soldier's eyes don't even flicker. His arm does. A backhand, practiced and efficient. The boy goes down like a dropped basket. No one screams. No one protests. The mother hurries over and drags the boy away without a word. You learn the Roman way quickly. Be small. Be quiet. Be gone. You pass a man kneeling beside his stall, rearranging baskets of figs with trembling hands. His taxes are due today. Everyone's are. The Romans don't care that it's Passover. If anything, they like that it is. More people. More currency. More reasons to remind the Jews that even their holiest week exists at Caesar's pleasure. Across the square, a woman pleads with a tax collector. Not a Roman, but a local, which somehow makes it worse. He counts her coins twice, then nods to the nearest soldier who pulls her aside. You don't watch what happens next. You've already seen it before. The temple looms behind you, but even it bows to Rome. They say the high priest wears his vestments under Roman permission. They say the gold that lines the sanctuary came with interest. They say the sword is heavier than the scroll, and the man who carries both wears red. One of the soldiers stands at the edge of a butcher's stall, watching the blood drain from a freshly killed lamb. He nudges the butcher with the toe of his boot. "Got any wine?" he asks in Greek, with a grin that shows he already knows the answer. The butcher nods, hurries to fetch it. The wine isn't his to give, but he'll give it anyway, because saying no is worse than going hungry. The soldier drinks straight from the jug, wipes his mouth on the back of his arm, and tosses the rest onto the stones. It seeps into the dirt beside the lamb's blood. It's hard to tell them apart. You try to blend in with the crowd. Not fast, not slow, just movement, unthreatening, invisible. You don't make eye contact. You don't make noise. The street teaches you that fast. The soldier's gaze is like the sun. Stare at it too long and you'll go blind. Or worse. You hear shouting up ahead. Two men arguing in the street. Loud, wild, about something petty. One grabs the other's robe. Big mistake. The nearest Roman is already moving. He doesn't walk. He cuts through the crowd. One hand on his gladius. Not drawn. Not yet. Just a whisper of threat. The argument stops. The men back away from each other like scalded dogs. The soldier says nothing. Just stands there, watching, letting the silence stretch. Then slowly he spits at their feet and turns away. The message is clear. He'll be back. And next time he won't be bored. He'll be angry. You pass the checkpoint near the gate. Two more soldiers, each holding a spear longer than you are tall. They nod at the merchants with thick purses. They scowl at the pilgrims with dirt on their sandals. One of them eyes your pouch. You clutch it tighter, but not obviously. He lets you go. This time, you think of the man they crucified yesterday. They left him up for the birds. You saw his body sagging in the afternoon sun, flies crowding his face, a sign above his head in 3 languages, one for every layer of domination. Hebrew for the priests, Greek for the traders, Latin for the empire. You ask someone what he did. Made people nervous, they said. You believe it. You turn a corner and step into a quieter alley. Heart thudding in your chest like you've just outrun something. You didn't. But still, you made it out of their gaze. For now. Because in Jerusalem, under Roman rule, you don't need to be guilty. You just need to be visible. It starts as a dark streak along the limestone. Not thick, not fast, just steady. You tell yourself it could be wine, or oil, or something else spilt by mistake. But you know better. Everyone in this city does. You follow it because you can't help it, because the smell drags you, because your feet, tired and cracked, are already moving downhill, like everything else in Jerusalem, toward the slaughter. At first, it's one stall, a low wooden table slick with the remnants of something freshly killed. A lamb hangs by its back legs, neck open, tongue slack. The butcher wipes his hands on a cloth that's long since given up trying to be clean. He whistles while he works. His knife doesn't. Then it's 2 stalls, 3, 10. An entire row of them, backed up against the southern edge of the temple complex. Unofficial, of course, but tolerated. Profitable. Endless. Lambs, goats, even birds, all bleating or flapping or silent. All waiting for their turn. The priests do the official sacrifices inside. But this is where the overflow ends up. The pilgrim who can't afford the temple tax, but still wants his conscience cleared. The family who traveled for days with nothing but a lamb tied to their cart and the hope that someone up there is still listening. The butchers are fast. Their hands are a blur. Their robes are already soaked up to the elbows. They don't pause. They don't blink. One hand holds the animal. The other finds the throat. A quick pull. A warm rush. Another lamb goes limp. You think about turning away. You don't. You step closer. Carefully. The stones are slick now, darkened with the mingled runoff of sacrifice and sweat. You almost slip. Someone behind you doesn't. There's a grunt, a curse, a smear. No one helps him up. The blood runs into narrow channels between the stones, designed long ago for this very reason. The city was built to handle this kind of worship. Blood as currency, blood as confession, blood as proof. It pools in the corners where the sun never reaches. It soaks into sandals. It cakes on toes. Flies rise in clouds and land again like they've been summoned. You swat at one. It ignores you. There's a boy standing beside one of the tables, holding a struggling lamb in his arms. He can't be more than 12. His face is blank, not because he's at peace, but because he's somewhere else, somewhere safer. The butcher says something. The boy nods. The lamb cries once, just once, then nothing. The boy gets a piece of bread from the butcher as thanks. It's soaked in something red. He eats it anyway. You gag, not because of the violence. That part you understand. You've lived long enough to know that life is a hungry thing, and blood is part of the bargain. What churns your stomach is how normal this all is, how quiet, how efficient. This isn't a festival. It's an assembly line. You keep walking. The further downhill you go, the worse it gets. The blood, thin now, runs over the lip of the street and spills into an alley, where it slows, thickens, settles. It's cooler here, shaded. The perfect place for flies and dogs and men who've stopped pretending to be holy. A man sits slumped in the corner, robe stained and eyes glassy. His hands are red up to the wrists. Maybe butcher, maybe penitent, maybe both. He holds a wineskin that's half empty and a dove cage that's half full. You step around him, careful not to catch his eye. You reach a point where the air changes. It's heavier, clotted. You breathe through your mouth and still taste iron. The walls are streaked, not intentionally, just over time. Centuries of this. A river of atonement carving its way through the city like it's looking for someone to blame. A woman kneels beside the flow, washing a dish in it. You blink. She's serious. Her movements are steady, rinsing off crumbs with a mixture of water and worship. She doesn't look up, neither do you. A priest passes by, heading uphill. He steps right through the blood like it's nothing. His white hem darkens instantly, like a wound blooming on linen. He doesn't flinch, doesn't slow. You realize this is normal to him, expected, maybe even divine. Because here in the city of God, this isn't a slaughterhouse. It's a ritual, a purification, a sacred process. This is what devotion looks like, but it doesn't feel sacred to you. It feels sticky. It feels warm where it shouldn't be. It feels like your skin won't ever be clean again. You stop walking. You look down at your feet. The blood has found you, seeped between your toes, painted your soles. You take another step, and it pulls, thick as mud. The street groans beneath you. There's no end to it, no drain, no cleansing rain, just blood on stone, and more coming. You remember the stories they told you as a child, about holy fire, and the mercy of the altar, and the Lamb that took away the sins of the world. You didn't realize there were so many sins. You didn't realize how much blood it takes. You don't speak. You don't pray. You just stand there until the flies find you too. The shouting starts before the sun fully climbs the temple walls. At first you think it's another merchant, loud, desperate, trying to sell old dates or cracked olives to pilgrims too starved to care. But this voice doesn't bargain. It condemns. Repent. You hear it clear through the crush of mourning feet and donkey brays. Turn back, for the kingdom of heaven is near. You follow the sound like a thread pulled through the tapestry of dust and sweat and half-swallowed prayers. Around the corner, near a cracked cistern, a man stands barefoot on a broken pillar, face lifted toward the sky like he's addressing someone who isn't you. He's wrapped in camel hair, real camel hair, stiff and matted, and crawling with whatever made a home there last. His beard is wild, his eyes sunken, and his voice could split stone. He looks like a walking famine, but he speaks like thunder. "The axe," he cries, "is already at the root of the tree, and every tree that does not bear fruit will be thrown into the fire." You expect laughter, or at least distance. But the crowd grows. People stop, they listen, some nod, a few weep. A Roman soldier leans against a wall across the street, not interfering, just watching. Like a man standing downwind of a fire, waiting to see which way the flames lean. You try to move past, but another man blocks your way. Not the same kind. No robe, no sandals, no shame. Just a naked body smeared with ash and spittle, pacing in a circle like a wolf in a too small cage. "They're coming," he shrieks. Wings of fire, teeth like lions, blood in the sky. He grabs the hem of your tunic. His hand is cold, even in this heat. His breath smells of old meat and prophecy. You try to pull away. He tightens his grip. "Don't you see it?" he whispers. "They already walk among us. The end, the end, the end." A child throws a stone. It hits the man square in the chest. He doesn't flinch, doesn't even blink, just turns and screams at the rooftops until a group of men herd him toward a fountain, laughing. Not cruelly. Almost like it's a routine, like this is his job, and theirs. You keep walking. You want to believe these are just madmen, dust-bitten, starved, cracked open by the sun. But you can't ignore the way people listen, the way some cry, the way others murmur amen under their breath when the words cut too close. Another voice rises behind you, this one quieter, measured. A man in a gray cloak sits cross-legged beside the road, drawing shapes in the dust with a stick. People stop, kneel, listen. You edge closer, curious. His words aren't loud, but they carry. Soon the veil will tear, the stones will split, the dead will rise. Someone asks, "When?" The man doesn't answer, just smiles, like he's remembering something that hasn't happened yet. His fingers never stop moving in the dust. Circles, flames, eyes. You back away. Every corner has one now. Preachers, poets, ranting madmen with the breath of prophecy and the eyes of trauma. Some quote scripture, others babble nonsense. But the noise is holy. Or close enough that you stop trying to tell the difference. You pass a woman covered in sackcloth. She's kneeling in the middle of the road, ashes in her hair, wailing for the unborn. "He will come with fire," she moans, "and who can stand when he appears?" Her voice cracks. No one moves her. People walk around her like she's part of the road. Another man paces with a clay jar, smashing it against the stones. "So shall the Lord shatter this city," he bellows, over and over, each jar more jagged than the last. You don't know how many he's brought. You don't ask. Near the temple's edge, a crowd surrounds a prophet with a limp. His arm hangs useless at his side, broken or worse, but his mouth works just fine. He said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days he will raise it up," he shouts, his voice cracking with heat and spit. "You think this gold will save you? You think these walls will hold back wrath?" Someone yells back, "Who said that?" The prophet smiles. "You'll know soon enough." The crowd shifts, unsettled. The man begins to sing. Not a hymn, not a psalm, something older, sadder, a song without rhythm or sense. But it sticks in your teeth like grit. You escape down a side street, heart racing, throat dry. Behind you, the prophets go on shouting. Warnings, promises, threats. No one stops them. No one silences them. Because in this city, you never know. You never know which one might be telling the truth. And worse, you never know which one might be right. It starts with a whisper, Not a chant, not a shout, not a prayer. Just a name. Spoken low, passed between cracked lips like contraband. Yeshua. You hear it while standing in line for water, a line that hasn't moved in 10 minutes. Two women behind you are murmuring, eyes flicking sideways. He healed a blind man, one says, right outside the city gates, with just spit and mud. The other makes a sound, halfway between reverence and fear. I heard he raised someone. From the grave, you turn your head, not to interrupt, just to see if their faces match their words. They don't look insane, just hopeful and afraid of it. Later, by the butcher stalls, you hear it again. This time from a man selling pomegranates, who mutters the name under his breath when a Roman kicks over a beggar's bowl. Yeshua wouldn't have stood for that, he says. His voice is low, but the anger in it is sharp. His wife grabs his sleeve. "Quiet!" she hisses. "You want another cross put up?" You move on, but the name follows you. Jesus, the Galilean. At first it's just background noise, another prophet, another street preacher, but you begin to notice the way the air tenses every time the name surfaces. People don't say it like gossip. They say it like it means something, like it costs something. Near the temple steps, a cluster of boys play with stones and dust, reenacting something they've seen or been told. One of them flips over a basket, coins flying in all directions. He shouts, "My Father's house is not a marketplace." His voice is too young to carry authority, but the phrase hits like a slap. An older man nearby scolds them, not for playing, but for playing that. "Don't draw attention," he snaps, gathering the coins and shaking hands. "This week you don't speak that name." You keep walking, but the edges of the story start sticking together. He overturned the money tables. He healed the sick. He walked on water. He said the temple would fall. He called himself a king. You hear it all in fragments, like trying to piece together a mosaic that someone keeps hiding. Each new detail makes the old ones darker. He argued with priests. He dined with outcasts. He called himself the light of the world, then spat into the dirt to prove it. They say he fed thousands with 5 loaves and 2 fish. They say he cast out demons just by looking at them. They say he wept outside the tomb of a friend, then told the dead man to walk. You pass a baker kneading dough with trembling hands. Someone leans over his stall and whispers, "They took him." The baker nods without looking up. "Last night," he says, "Mount of Olives, no one stopped them." A pause, then softer. "No one tried." You reach the marketplace again. The noise is thicker now, not louder, just heavier, like everyone's still talking, but about one thing and pretending they're not. You see eyes dart from face to face, measuring silence, weighing risk. A man bumps into you and mutters an apology. His hand grips your arm for a second too long. His mouth is close to your ear. "They say he's with Pilate," he says. Then he's gone, swallowed by the crowd. You don't know who they are. You don't know why you care. But suddenly, the city feels thinner, like a curtain stretched too tight over something burning underneath. The walls, the temples, the rituals, all of it feels like paper. One spark. That's all it would take. Near the mikveh pools, a woman cries. You think it's grief until you hear what she's saying. "He said he'd rise," she wails. "He said 3 days." A priest approaches her gently, says something calming, and steers her away. She doesn't resist, but she doesn't stop crying either. You sit beside a cracked cistern, heart thudding with something you can't name. You didn't see this man. You didn't hear him speak. but his shadow is everywhere. He's not here, but somehow he is. In the whispers, in the fear, in the ache behind people's eyes when they look toward the Roman barracks and imagine the worst. You look up and realize something chilling. The whisperers are louder than the prayers, and not all whispers are safe. A child tugs at your sleeve. You flinch. He looks up, wide-eyed, and says, "Did you hear what they did to the King of the Jews?" You stare at him. You don't know what to say, because you didn't come here looking for a king. But maybe that's who found you. You hear it before you see it. The hammer, rhythmic, heavy, not rushed. It echoes down the stone corridor like a drumbeat. Not of war, but of inevitability. You know the sound is wrong the moment it reaches you. It's not blacksmith work, not construction. It has no hurry, no metal ring, just the dull, repeating thud of wood meeting flesh through iron. You should walk the other way, but something pulls you. Morbid gravity, sick awe, or maybe something deeper, older, that wants to look death in the face just to prove you're still alive. The road bends. The sound grows louder. The air gets tight. People are gathering, not in panic, but anticipation. You see it in their eyes, the twisted mix of hunger and holiness. They're not watching something. They're witnessing it. And then you see them. 3 crosses, 3 men. And one of them is silent. The first one screams, writhes, curses so violently a soldier shoves a gag into his mouth just to finish the nailing. The second flails, not because he thinks he'll escape, but because his body hasn't accepted yet that it's over. But the third, he just looks down. No thrashing, no begging, no words. His arms are already stretched, palms open like an offering. The blood at his feet is steady, almost elegant, like ink trailing from a calligrapher's brush. A Roman raises the hammer. One last time. A pause, then crack. The crowd flinches. The man does not. The soldiers laugh. You want to turn away. You don't. The sign above his head reads, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." It's written in 3 languages. You wonder who it's for. The locals, the priests, or the foreigners who will one day ask, what kind of kingdom kills its own king? You step closer, crushed between shoulders and elbows. People are packed tight, pressing forward like they're at a festival. There's no reverence here, no mourning, just sweat, dust, and spectacle. A few cheer, some spit, others just watch, like it's a play, like it's normal. A man next to you eats a date and tosses the pit at the middle cross. It bounces off the wood. He laughs. The women sob behind veils. One of them collapses to her knees, fingers digging into the dirt like she could hold the world still if she just grips hard enough. Another speaks his name through her sobs. Yeshua. Over and over, like it's a spell she can't stop casting. One of the priests nods with satisfaction, arms folded. You recognize him from the temple. He stood near the Holy of Holies. Now he stands near death like it's holy too. The man on the first cross howls, "If you're the Messiah, save yourself." The second one gasps, "Don't you fear God? We deserve this, but not him." Then quieter, "Remember me, Yeshua." The man in the middle turns his head, barely. Blood has matted his hair to his temples. His lips are split. His voice is a whisper. "Today you will be with me." You don't hear the rest. A soldier tosses dice at that moment, crude and fast. They land near the base of the cross. The prize? His cloak, torn and stained. They joke about the fit. You want to scream, or run, or believe. Instead, you just stand there, Because crucifixion isn't the end here. It's the point. It's not just punishment. It's performance. Rome makes sure you see it. Smell it. Remember it. Every whip, every nail, every breathless hour strung between earth and sky. It's all part of the language of control. You don't forget the lesson. This is what happens when you rise too far. This is what happens when you speak like a king. This is what happens when you turn tables over. The sun shifts, shadows lengthen. The man in the middle struggles to breathe. He pulls against the nails, not to escape, but just to fill his lungs. Every gasp is a battle, and he's losing. Someone in the crowd says, "He saved others, let him save himself." Someone else murmurs, "He said the temple would fall." And someone, maybe you, whispers, "He said he was the temple." A wind picks up. A cloud slides over the sun. Not darkness, but dim enough to notice. Dim enough to make you wonder. The man in the middle looks upward. His face is agony and something else. Peace, surrender. You don't know. You're not sure anyone here does. Then he speaks. Loud, clear, final. "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And then, silence. No more hammering, no more mocking, just the creak of wood and the drip of blood. You don't realize you're crying until the salt hits your cracked lips. You taste it, and it tastes like grief. A centurion takes a step forward. He looks at the corpse, at what it once was, and he says the thing no one else will. Surely this man was the Son of God. And then he walks away. You look up at the body one last time. The sky is quiet now, but everything beneath it is not. Because in Jerusalem, they don't hide the crucifixions. They build the city around them. You duck beneath a sagging linen awning into a narrow courtyard that smells of wet clay, boiled barley, and something else. Something quieter. The sound here is not silence exactly, but it hums like it. Broom bristles against dirt, the soft slap of dough in a clay bowl, the rhythm of life beneath the noise of men. The women are here. Dozens of them, maybe more, moving through the shadows like part of the stone. They do not speak unless spoken to. They do not meet your eyes unless they must. They wear the dust like skin, and the heat like penance. One squats beside a flat rock, grinding grain into meal with a stone that's already worn down to the shape of her hand. Her muscles ripple beneath her sleeves. Her arms are stronger than most men's, but no one calls them beautiful. She works with her head down, her mouth set, her baby strapped to her back with a strip of faded wool. Another woman crouches by a fire, fanning it with a palm leaf fan until it breathes just enough to keep the pot from dying. She adds no spices. The smell is thin, just boiled water and resignation. A girl sweeps the mud, not to clean it, just to keep it from turning into something worse. She's young, too young. You think of her as a child until she turns sideways, and you see her belly, round and high and far too ready. Her eyes meet yours for a second, then dart away. You want to ask where the father is, but here, that question answers itself. In the corner, a hunched woman pours water, slowly, steadily, over the feet of a man too old or too sick to rise. His skin is cracked, black in places, the kind of black that never comes clean. He groans once, but she hushes him softly. She speaks to him in words not meant for ears like yours. Just a prayer half sung, like a lullaby worn thin with use. Her voice wavers but never breaks. No one notices. No one thanks her. This is not a scene for men. And yet, here you are, watching, witnessing what men only mention when they're bleeding or dying or pretending to be holy. A toddler tugs at a woman's sleeve. She lifts him without breaking rhythm. Her hip already knows the shape of his weight. She stirs with one hand and rocks with the other. You wonder if she ever does anything just for herself. And you already know the answer. From deeper inside the courtyard, a groan rises. Not the sick man this time, but something older, more animal. A woman emerges, red cloth wrapped around her arms, sweat pouring down her neck. Behind her, a curtain rustles, and for a moment, you see another girl sprawled on blood-soaked linen, legs still trembling. Her mouth is open, but no sound comes out. Only her eyes move, scanning the ceiling for a god who does not answer. The red-clothed woman wipes her hands on her skirt and steps back into the kitchen. No ceremony, no announcement. Just one more body added to the world. One more soul shoved into the dirt and expected to rise. You feel like an intruder. You are an intruder. But no one tells you to leave. They've grown used to men arriving, watching, leaving, and forgetting. A woman with a scar down her cheek lifts a basket of bread and catches you staring. She raises an eyebrow, not unkind, but unimpressed, and nods toward the doorway. If you're not bleeding, she says, don't stand in the shade. You step back. She returns to her work. That's all she'll give you. The women continue. They clean what cannot stay clean. They pray for what will not heal. They feed mouths that will grow up to forget them. They bury children who never learned their names. They catch babies and bathe the dead in the same clay bowls. They carry water up hills and grief in their backs. There is no audience for this, no temple ritual, no carved tablets declaring their worth. But without them, the city would choke on its own noise. The temple would rot, the men would starve, and the God they all pretend to understand would go hungry. You step out of the courtyard and back into the street. The sun slaps your eyes. The noise rushes back. You don't look back, but you carry the sound of that quiet with you. And it's louder than the crowd. You broke the law before you even woke up. No bath, no prayer, no tithe. You stepped barefoot onto holy ground with yesterday's dust still clinging to your legs like a curse. You looked a beggar in the eye. You breathed near a leper. You passed a corpse and didn't tear your robe. That's 4. And it's not even breakfast. You're trying. Or at least you were. You washed your hands in a cracked basin outside the gate, muttered the right blessing even though your tongue stumbled through the Hebrew. You stepped over the blood flowing from the butcher stalls, careful not to let it splash your hem. You said amen when someone else prayed aloud. And still, you feel unclean. Because here, in Jerusalem, sin is not an act. It's an atmosphere. It's the air you breathe, the sandals you wear, the fruit you touch at the market and put back because it's bruised and probably touched by Gentile hands. The law is everywhere, and it's watching. The rules are stacked like stones, layered into every part of the day. Rise with the sun, but don't forget to thank God for opening your eyes. Don't eat bread that hasn't been tithed. Don't touch the jar if someone unclean has touched it. Don't let your shadow fall across a woman with blood between her legs. Don't mix meat and milk. Don't pick grain on the Sabbath, not even if you're starving. You broke 5 commandments just by walking. You're not even sure which 5. That's the worst part. There are too many to count. Some are written, some whispered, some enforced by glances and sandals and the quiet shame of being noticed doing something not quite right. A man beside you at the temple gate mutters a prayer before entering. You don't recognize the words. So you pretend you're praying too. You bow your head, not too low, just enough to blend in. You notice a priest watching, his eyes slow and deliberate. You don't know if he sees your bluff. You don't know if he cares. That's the problem. No one tells you when you failed. Not until it's too late. There's a booth by the temple steps. 2 young men collect offerings in wooden bowls. One of them shakes it when you pass. The coins rattle like accusation. You nod and reach for your pouch. 3 bronze coins. That's all you have left. 1 for bread, 1 for water, 1 for... what? Your soul? You drop a coin in the bowl. His face doesn't change. No thank you. No blessing. Just an open palm for the next person. You're starting to understand. Salvation isn't free. It's not even fair. It's a full-time job. And you're already behind. A child brushes against you in the crowd. Sticky fingers. Crumbs on his chin. You reach to steady him before he falls and realize too late. He's got a skin condition, something red and flaking on his neck. You jerk your hand back, but it's done. Another rule shattered. You glance around. No one saw, except heaven. Heaven sees everything. You duck into a narrow alley and try to breathe. The walls are close. The heat closer. There's no room to think, let alone repent. You can't remember how long uncleanness lasts for contact like that. A day? A week? Should you burn your tunic? Offer a dove? You don't have a dove. You barely have shoes. Further down, a rabbi debates with 2 scholars, their voices echoing off the stone. But what if the ox falls into a pit on the Sabbath? One says. Is it mercy or sin to pull it out? They argue like the answer is everything, like it matters more than the man slumped beside them, bleeding from the mouth. No one sees him. They're too busy arguing about oxen. You walk faster. At a public fountain, 2 women wash a blanket with such precision you'd think it belonged to a king. It touched a corpse. One explains to no one in particular. We count 7 days, burn the thread, replace the ties, then to the priest. Her voice is matter-of-fact, tired, practiced, like she's done this 100 times and will do it again next week. You start to see it clearly now. The law is not a ladder to climb. It's a net, tight, inescapable, hidden in plain sight. Every step forward is a tangle, every breath a risk. You try to follow it, and it tightens. You try to break it, and it cuts. The only people who walk freely here are the ones who know the loopholes, or the ones who've given up entirely. You are neither. So you walk, eyes down, heart pounding. And when you see a man with no sandals, no offering, no shame, walk straight into the temple like he owns it, like he is the offering, you stop. You stare, because somehow he moves like someone who's clean and not afraid of dirt. And suddenly, you don't know which is more terrifying, breaking the law or being free from it. They come down from the hillside in the heat of the afternoon, slow as shadows. You hear them before you see them. The thin metallic clatter of bells, soft but unmistakable, like wind chimes made of sickness, like a sound designed to travel not just through streets, but through bones. 3 of them, maybe 4, wrapped in rags that were once robes, faces covered, hands hidden. What skin is visible is the color of rot, peeled, split, speckled like meat left too long in the sun. Their movements are stiff, deliberate, not because of reverence but pain. Every step costs them. You can see it. The bells are tied to their ankles, their wrists, around their waists. They don't ring them on purpose. The city rings them for them. Every stone step, every scrape against a wall, Every tremble in their gait becomes an announcement. Unclean. Unclean. The people know what it means. Doors slam. Mothers call children indoors. A merchant mutters a curse and flings a bucket of vinegar across the path like it will cleanse the air. A priest ducks into a side street so fast he drops a scroll, doesn't even look back. You don't move. You can't. Because one of them looks just like your brother. Not exactly. It couldn't be. Your brother's eyes were clearer, his nose less broken. He would have never walked like this, bowed and brittle and slow. But this man's shoulders are the same. That lopsided gait from a childhood injury, the scar that cuts through the brow like a fingerprint. You take a step forward, then stop. The leper sees you, or maybe just notices the space you leave in the street. He doesn't change direction. He doesn't blink. He just keeps walking. A bell on his ankle scrapes against the stone. The sound is hollow and cruel. A child across the plaza throws a stone. It hits the tallest leper in the shoulder. The man barely reacts. His head tilts, like he's remembering pain rather than feeling it. The child laughs. Another stone. This one misses. The second leper raises a hand. 3 fingers remain, and speaks. Peace, he says. It's barely a whisper, but it cuts through everything. You look around. No one heard it, or pretended not to. They all walk faster, avert their gaze, whisper prayers they don't mean. The lepers shuffle toward the edge of the market, where the stone turns to dust, and the alleys open like wounds in the city's skin. They know where they're allowed, where they're not. They move like men who've memorized the borderlines of rejection. You follow a few steps, no more. You just need to see, to know. The brother-shaped one pauses, turns. The cloth over his mouth lifts with each shallow breath. His eyes meet yours again. There's something behind them. Not recognition, not hope. Something worse. Permission. He nods once, just once. Like a farewell you didn't ask for. You don't cry. You just taste metal. A woman nearby clutches her baby tighter as the bells fade. She spits in the dirt, a ward against bad luck. Another man says, "It's their fault, you know." God punishes sin like that. You want to punch him. You don't. Because in this city, leprosy isn't a disease. It's a verdict. The priests say it's spiritual rot made visible, proof of God's disapproval. They don't heal it. They just declare it. Once, loudly, in public. And from that moment on, the leper doesn't just lose their skin. They lose their name, their home, their past. They wear the bells so no one has to wonder. So you never have to get close enough to ask who they used to be. You stay on the fringe of the alley for a while, until the smell fades. That earthy, sour scent of wounds that never close. You breathe through your mouth and pretend it helps. Somewhere back toward the temple, a ram bellows. A crowd roars. A lamb bleeds. No one notices the 4 men who walked through the city without touching anyone, without asking for alms, without speaking unless forced. No one but you. And now you understand the bells. They're not just warnings. They're liturgy. Because in a city full of sin, these are the only ones who announce themselves. They ring and the people scatter. They ring and the priests flee. They ring and the children throw stones. But they do not lie. Unclean. Unclean. You step back into the light, into the noise, into the part of the city where no one admits they're sick, where holiness is performed and sin is a shadow pinned to someone else. The bells are fading now, carried on the breeze like a broken psalm. You think of your brother. You think of the scar. And for the first time in this whole blood-stained city, you want to be touched. It's noon, and the sun is no longer something you pray under. It's something you survive. The sky has turned into a white, lidless eye, watching everything and forgiving nothing. Heat rises off the stones like punishment. Your tongue is thick. Your tunic clings. You can feel the salt of your own body drying into a second skin. The air doesn't move, it just presses. Even the flies seem slower now, drunk on blood and sweat and sacrifice. They crawl across your lips like they own them. You swat one, mistry again, miss again. The buzzing becomes part of the background, another sound in a city that's always just short of screaming. You press yourself against a wall in an alley narrow enough to squeeze out a sliver of shade, just wide enough to breathe. The stone burns your back, but it's better than the sun, so you stay. That's when you hear it. A wet hiss, too close. A Roman soldier stands a few feet away, legs spread, face blank. He's pissing on the wall. Your wall, the one you thought would shelter you. He doesn't see you. Or maybe he does and doesn't care. The piss streams down in rivulets, steaming on the stone. You feel droplets splash toward your feet. You move. Fast. Not because of shame, but because it's clear you are not part of this space. Not to him, not to anyone. You keep walking. The sun follows. It gets inside your eyes, your ears, even your mouth. You taste copper and thirst. You crave water, but the fountains are crowded, and the ones that aren't are suspect. Cloudy, lukewarm, floating with things you can't name. A boy tries to sell you a cup of it for a full coin. You laugh without meaning to. He curses you in Aramaic, or maybe it's Greek. Either way, you deserve it. Your sandals are beginning to fail. The leather has turned brittle. One strap snaps. You walk with a limp. The street stones, now fully sun-baked, scorch your heel with every step. You don't notice until the pain becomes memory. Not a moment, but a state of being. Everything smells like cooking meat, except none of it's yours. Vendors roast skewers of doves and lamb fat and something darker. Char and spice hang in the air like a false invitation. You step near, hoping to breathe it in and trick your stomach. The vendor catches your glance and spits near your feet. Buy or keep walking, he says. You keep walking. The sun is in your bones now. You find a well in a quieter quarter. A line has formed. 10 deep, all men. No women here. One man draws the water slowly, pours it carefully into each vessel, as if the act itself might prevent a riot. When it's your turn, the bucket scrapes the bottom and comes back with barely enough to fill your cupped hands. The man doesn't apologize, just says, "Next," and looks past you. You drink. It's hot, but it's wet. You step into another alley, hoping for more shade. But it's worse here. The heat pools instead of passes. It's an oven with no open end. Someone has hung a linen sheet between two windows to block the sun. It sags in the middle, forming a pocket of light too bright to look at directly. The cloth glows, thin and holy, like it might catch fire if someone says the wrong name too loud. You see a cat curled under a cart, panting, eyes slits of gold. You envy it. You see a beggar slumped in a corner, not even pretending to ask for help anymore. His lips are cracked. His mouth moves, but there's no sound. You drop your last fig near his hand and keep walking. It wasn't pity. It was survival. He was about to die, and you didn't want to watch it. The sun climbs higher, though it has no right to. You're sure it should be going down by now. Time is stuck, melted. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve and come away with blood from your own sunburned skin. Every face you pass looks the same now, burnt, bleached, blank. The rich hide in shaded courtyards. The priests disappear into stone sanctuaries. The poor stack themselves into corners like broken pottery. No one speaks. Even the prophets are quiet at midday. It's too hot to sin, too hot to think. And then the wind changes, just for a moment. Just enough to carry the smell of the crosses from Golgotha down into the streets. Rot and iron, sweat and vinegar. The blood, you realize, does not dry in this heat. It cooks. You walk faster. The sun watches. You are the clay. And it is shaping you, cracking you, hollowing you out. And it will not stop until you break. You don't know what you said. Not exactly. It was something about taxes, or Rome, or how the temple feels less like heaven and more like a very expensive market with better architecture. You weren't even being bold, just tired, hungry, drained from the heat. Words slip when you're dehydrated. But they heard. An elder turns. His beard is white, but his eyes are sharp, too sharp. He studies you like he's measuring your weight in sins. Another man, younger, thinner, dressed in linen too clean for the streets, steps closer. Not a smile between them, not even a frown. Just stillness, like a trap waiting to snap. You look down. That's the rule here. Eyes low, voice lower. But it's too late. The elder mutters something. The thin man nods. And just like that, you're marked. Not officially, not publicly, but privately. Like a line drawn in dust behind your heel. You feel it. Every step after this, you're not just walking. You're being watched. You try to disappear into the crowd, but it's thicker now. Denser. Every corner hums with tension. Someone chants near the temple gate. A woman argues with a vendor about the price of barley. A child cries over spilled dates. It all sounds normal, but it isn't. You hear the word Galilean hissed from somewhere nearby. You flinch. You know who they mean. The one they crucified, or the one they're about to. You don't say his name. Not now. Not after what just happened. But your ears are tuned for it now, drawn to whispers like flies to an open wound. Every few steps, you catch it again. Said he could tear it down in 3 days. Eats with whores and tax collectors. Calls himself the Son. No one says the full name, not out loud, not unless they're praying or cursing. And sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. You duck into a side passage, hoping to buy silence with distance. But the walls have ears here, and the ears have opinions. 2 men lean against a stone archway, trading news like it's contraband. He healed my cousin, one says. He called our priests vipers, the other replies. And what if they are? Then let God sort them. They both fall silent when you pass. You keep walking. Later, near the baths, someone's yelling. You think it's another prophet. They're everywhere this week. But when you look, it's just a merchant, red-faced and frothing. He's a blasphemer, the man cries. He said he could forgive sins, not God himself. People nod. Others scoff. One woman mutters, "Only the Romans have the power to kill. Let them deal with it." That's the rhythm of the city now. Truth isn't spoken here. It's performed, shouted, denied. Repeated until it calcifies into something that sounds holy, or at least convenient. You try to keep your head down, but curiosity scratches at your ribs. You think about what he said, the Galilean, the stories you've heard, the way people whisper like he's already a ghost, and the way others glare like he's still a threat. He said the temple would fall. He said the first would be last. He said the kingdom was near. And in a city where every coin buys silence and every prayer costs blood, That sounds like war. You pass a man selling scrolls. His fingers are stained with ink and pomegranate. He watches you too closely. Behind him, a soldier lounges under a canopy, peeling a fig with a dagger. His ears aren't listening, but his blade is. You move on. A priest in white robes sweeps past you like a storm cloud, muttering scripture under his breath. You catch one line, every careless word, and then lose the rest in the crowd's hum. The message is clear. This city runs on rules you can't read fast enough. Blasphemy is a moving target. It's not about gods, it's about control. Say the wrong thing, and it's heresy. Say the right thing too loudly, and it's sedition. Say nothing, and they'll ask why you're so quiet. You stop near a shaded bench to rest your feet. An old woman with no teeth sits beside you. She smells like herbs and oil and thyme. She looks at you like she knows your thoughts. You heard about the Nazarene? She says. You nod. She spits between her sandals. Should have kept his mouth shut. And that's it. No debate, no question, just one verdict, whispered in the sun. Should have kept his mouth shut. You wonder how many others have thought the same. You wonder if they're right, or if the only sin here is telling the truth without a license. You stay quiet the rest of the day, not because you're afraid of God, but because the city listens. And its memory is long. There's something wrong with the word Messiah, not in how it's spelled, in how it's passed between mouths. Too fast, too certain. You hear it in every accent today. Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, Latin. Some spit it, some sing it, some just mutter it into their beards like a wish or a warning, but no one agrees on what it means. A woman near the market says the Messiah will be a healer. Gentle hands, soft eyes, peace thick as honey. A man near the gate says nonsense. He'll come with a sword in one hand and God's fury in the other. Another swears he'll ride in on clouds and burn the whole empire down, start fresh with just the faithful. But none of them describe the man on the cross. Too poor, too plain, too human. The Galilean didn't storm the palace, didn't command legions, didn't even defend himself when they dragged him away. Just stood there, hands bound, eyes unblinking, like he knew how the story ended and pitied everyone still stuck in the middle. That's the problem. Everyone wants a Messiah, but not that one. You walk past a bakery where two men argue between mouthfuls of barley bread. I heard he raised the dead, says one. I heard he lied about raising the dead, the other snaps. A rabbi nearby clears his throat loudly. The Messiah comes from David's line, he says, as if that settles it. From Bethlehem, not Nazareth. A silence follows. Someone coughs. Then another man, younger, dustier, drunk on grief or wine or both, mumbles, maybe the temple doesn't matter anymore. Heads turn, not quickly but sharply. That's the kind of sentence that gets remembered. The drunk man slinks away. You wonder if that's how it started for the Galilean. One sentence, one quiet disruption, a truth that didn't match the architecture, a kindness mistaken for arrogance. You find a place to sit on a crumbling ledge just wide enough for your spine and a handful of regret. The city rumbles around you. Voices, sandals, vendors, prayers. The normal soundscape of survival. But today it's layered with something else. Something heavy. Expectation. Everyone's waiting for something to happen. A sky to rip. A veil to tear. A corpse to rise. But the world doesn't shift. The sun still burns. The priests still chant. The Romans still count their coins. You overhear a child ask, "Mama, if he was the Messiah, why did they kill him?" The mother hushes the child, looks around, says nothing. There is no safe answer. You pass a group of scholars seated on stone steps, their robes pristine, their sandals unlaced for comfort. One is quoting scripture. Another is dissecting prophecy like it's a goat carcass, slicing, naming, debating which bones matter most. They talk about Isaiah. They talk about kingship. They talk about war. Not. One mentions the man hanging in the sun like an unspoken prayer. Because if that was the Messiah, they missed him, and they don't want that kind of story. You continue walking. You see chalk on a wall, a crude symbol someone drew before being chased off. It looks like a fish or a secret. Below it, a smear of red, not chalk. There's no shortage of messiahs this week. Everyone's cousin's neighbor has seen a sign. A man with a limp swears he dreamt of a lion speaking in Greek. A merchant says the Messiah already came, left, and will return. But only for those who paid their temple dues. You stop listening. You've heard enough prophecy to last a lifetime. You've seen enough suffering to fill one. A beggar by the city gate raises his hand and says softly, "The Messiah was the one who saw me." Just that. No one hears him but you. You nod once. Keep walking. Near the outskirts, where the noise fades into dust and flies, you see the three crosses again. Only one body remains, the Galilean. Arms stretched, head bowed, skin blistered open by heat and shame. No crown, no throne, no army. Just blood, just silence. You stand there a long time, unsure what you're waiting for. A lightning strike, a resurrection, a whisper. Nothing happens. The world just goes on being the world. Behind you, the city swells with more pilgrims, more prayers, more blasphemies dressed as law. In front of you, a dead man who didn't fit anyone's picture of God. Maybe that's the point. Maybe every Messiah dies for being too different, too kind, too real. And maybe this city doesn't need a savior, just a scapegoat. So they hung him up, just to be safe. You take a wrong turn. Not the kind that gets you lost. The kind that reminds you where you are. You're chasing shade. The sun has punished you all day, and your feet feel flayed from temple stairs and gravel alleys. So when you see the arch in the hillside, half hidden behind a crumbling olive tree and an overturned cart, you duck inside without thinking. Cool air greets you like a lie. At first, it's relief. Then it's rot. The smell hits you in the teeth. Old damp linen, dust thick with memory, and something deeper. Something that clings to your nostrils and makes you feel smaller than your skin. You've entered a tomb. Not the kind marked by grieving relatives or plucked flowers. Number this one doesn't welcome mourners. You pause, blinking in the dark. The heat from outside still clings to your back, but ahead of you, silence. A cool, sacred silence. Not peaceful, not safe. Just quiet, in the way a blade is quiet before it cuts. The walls close in, carved limestone, slick in places with moisture or blood. Hard to say. The floor slopes downward slightly and your bare heel slips on something soft and wrong. You step over it. The first thing you see clearly is a stone box. Then another. Then 50. Stacked, cramped. Uneven rows like teeth in a skull too large to belong to any man. Ossuaries. Bone boxes. Carved with names you can't read. Scratched with symbols you recognize. Stars, fish, menorahs, birds with broken wings. Some are sealed, some aren't. One has been cracked open, the lid leaning like a sigh. Inside, bones. Clean, arranged, patient. You realize how many have died here. You realize how many have died here. Jerusalem doesn't bury its dead. It tucks them into its ribs. You run your fingers over one box, expecting to feel something. Grief, maybe. Reverence. All you feel is dust and someone else's forgotten name. This isn't just a burial cave. This is a bookshelf, and every book is a person. You sit, not out of choice, but because your knees forget how to work. The weight of the air presses down on your chest. It smells of incense and finality. And under that, the faint iron tang of something fresh. Someone's been added recently. You don't want to look. You do anyway. Far back in the corner, behind the tightest stack, there's a bundle wrapped in linen. Still dark in spots, still wet. Too soon to be bones. You close your eyes. Open them again. It hasn't moved, but it knows you're here. You whisper a prayer you barely remember, not because you believe it will help, but because this is the kind of place where silence feels like permission. You shouldn't be here. You are here. You try to back out, but your foot catches on a shard of pottery. You stumble, hit a box. The sound it makes, not a clatter, not a crash, a thump, like a heart that hasn't stopped. You freeze. Outside, somewhere far above this hole in the earth, Jerusalem keeps breathing. Coins keep changing hands. Priests keep shouting. Doves keep screaming from cages. A child spills lentils. A soldier cracks a whip. Someone dies. But down here, everything is still. You notice one of the ossuaries has no name, just a cross, carved rough and shallow, like whoever did it was afraid of being seen. You wonder if it's his. The Galilean. It can't be. He's still up there, nailed in the sun. Unless someone already made room. You shiver. Jerusalem is not just a holy city. It's a city of waiting graves. The soil has memorized the shape of every martyr, every rebel, every lamb torn open for God. The streets you walked this morning were paved in crushed jawbones, the walls soaked in generations of blood. You thought you were stepping on limestone? You were stepping on skulls. You finally stand, slow, hands trembling. You don't belong here. Not yet. You make your way back toward the mouth of the cave, where light slices in like judgment. Dust floats through it, gold and ghostly. You step into it and feel older, smaller, like you've been measured by something ancient, and almost didn't pass. Behind you, the tomb exhales, not loudly, just enough to remind you, you are alive, but you are temporary. Everyone here is temporary. The city sells eternity in the temple courts, but buys death wholesale in caves like this. You climb out, blinking hard as the sun reclaims your eyes. Above you, Jerusalem gleams. Below, it remembers. The light changes first. It fades not with the softness of twilight, but with the heavy finality of a door closing behind you. The sun doesn't set. It surrenders. Shadows lengthen without asking permission, stretching across rooftops like fingers, curling into alleyways, soaking into the stones. Even the flies grow quiet. Even the priests stop shouting. You feel it before you see it, the shift. Like the city has drawn a sharp breath and is holding it. A tension gathers in your chest that doesn't belong to you, the kind that makes animals flee before a storm or a slaughter. The crowds thin, yes, but not because the day is done, not because prayers are finished or coin pouches are empty. No, it's something else, something older, something born before this city was built. It walks between the olive trees and leans over the rooftops. Even the birds forget how to sing. You stop moving without meaning to. Your feet root themselves to the earth like they know what's coming. The wind changes, carries dust, yes, but something more, something copper, something cracked. A sound splits the air, distant, sharp, tearing. You don't know where it comes from, but your bones know. A curtain somewhere, not just any curtain. The curtain, the one that separates holy from holier, flesh from flame, man from God. It is torn, and you weren't invited to see it, but something in the city saw. A dog howls, then silence again. You move now, slowly, as if your joints are borrowed. The market is abandoned. The temple steps are empty. Even the Roman soldiers are fewer, and strangely quiet. One leans against a wall, helmet in his hands. He's not looking at you. He's looking at the sky, like it's bleeding. Another sound, lower this time, less like a scream, more like a moan from under the ground. The earth itself is holding its breath. You remember the crucifixion. You wish you could forget. The 3 crosses still stand, but now they look different. Less like punishment, more like prophecy. Only one body remains. The Galilean, head down, skin split. Flies gather where his blood once wept. A few women still linger, cloaked and silent. One kneels, motionless, like the grief has turned her to stone. A man beside her, old, robed, hollow-eyed, says nothing. There is no more to say. Above it all, the sky pulls tighter. The clouds curl inward. The air thickens, heavy with something that feels wrong, or maybe too right. You turn away. You can't look anymore. You walk down a slope, past a fig tree with cracked bark, past a child sitting alone with dust on his lips, past a cracked cistern that drips with water no one drinks. You're not going anywhere in particular. You're avoiding something. Then you see it. A tomb. Not a poor man's grave. Not a forgotten bone cave. This one is new. Clean. Cut with money. The kind of place where the dead are treated like they'll return. The stone is round, heavy, but not sealed. Not yet. Beside it, linen. Folded. Stained. You step closer. You shouldn't. But you do. You think of the stories. The whispers. The man who bled but didn't beg. The man who taught in parables but died in silence. You think of the veil. Torn. You think of the sky. Swallowing light. You think of the temple. Cracking. The body lies inside. Wrapped. Still. Not royal. Not rich. Not holy. Just still. You stare. And something stares back. Not eyes. Not breath. But something. Like a pause before thunder. A second too long between heartbeats. You step back. The air vibrates. You don't know what you believe. You don't know what's true. But you do know this. The city is waiting. The tomb is not. And the silence is about to end. You came for something sacred. That's what you tell yourself now, barefoot and blistered, grime layered into your skin like a second tunic. You didn't come for the spectacle. Not the screaming merchants, not the lambs bleeding into gutter runoffs, not the prophets with spit-flecked beards and eyes full of fever. You came for God. You were sure of it, that there would be something here, divine. You thought it might be in the temple. The stones were high enough, the pillars broad, the gold polished within an inch of eternity. Men with embroidered robes and polished teeth recited holy things with holy mouths, and for a moment you thought, this must be it. This must be where heaven touches the earth. But then someone charged you 3 silver coins for a dove, and 2 more to convert your currency, and another to purify your hands. You washed in a bowl that smelled like sweat and mildew, and walked out more guilty than when you entered. You thought maybe it would be in the food. Bread broken in silence. A shared table. But the bread was stale and taxed, and the man who sold it told you without irony that sin added flavor. You thought maybe the people would carry it. The pilgrims, the travelers, the ones who'd walked all this way with songs on their tongues. But most of them looked lost, like you, hollow-eyed and overcharged. Some knelt with such desperation it made you feel ashamed to be upright. Some wept. Others just waited for something, anything, to happen. You thought maybe the prophets. You saw them, standing on crates, shouting about trees and axes, fire and threshing floors. One threw dirt in his own face. Another screamed at the sky until he collapsed. A woman beside you whispered, "That one hears voices." Then she threw him a coin, and still, nothing holy. You watched Romans drag a man through the streets. You didn't know his name yet. You do now. They shoved thorns on his head, called him king, beat him until the sun looked away. Then they nailed him up like a broken sign. And people watched, ate figs, took bets. God didn't come, not the way you imagined. No thunder, no voice, just dust and grief and another body added to the hill. So here you are, sitting on a low wall in the part of the city where no one bothers to sweep. Your tunic is crusted. Your tongue is swollen. You haven't prayed since sunrise. You haven't wept since you were a child. You feel neither righteous nor forgiven. You feel like a coin spent in the wrong market. But then, something happens. Not loud, not showy. Just a quiet moment where the wind moves sideways and the smell of crushed myrrh clings to the stones. Someone walks past with a jar. Someone else hums a melody older than language. A dog lies beside a beggar and doesn't growl. The silence grows roots. You close your eyes, and something inside you cracks. Not loudly, just enough to feel it. A pressure releasing, a wall shifting, a name you didn't know you'd forgotten. You still don't see God, but something is watching, something broken, but whole, something distant, but familiar. You open your eyes. The city is still ugly, still hungry, still loud in all the wrong ways. But your breath is slower now, like you've synced up with something underneath the chaos. Under the cobblestones, under the cries, you were looking for light. You found blood. You were looking for miracles. You found paperwork. You were looking for peace. You got a Roman boot in your ribs and a priest's hand in your purse. And still, something lingers. Maybe God doesn't live in temples. Maybe he left when the veil tore. Maybe he hides in the silence between transactions. In the woman who washed a stranger's feet. In the thief who said, "Remember me." In the grave that refused to stay full. You don't know the rules anymore. But for the first time all day, you don't feel alone. You came looking for God. And maybe he was bleeding on the street the whole time. By nightfall, the city has gnawed its way into your bones. Your feet are raw. You've worn the soles off your body. The blisters popped hours ago. Now it's just blood, dirt, and the memory of sandals that didn't survive the noon heat. Your tunic sags like a wet rag. You've sweat through your sin and back again. You can't tell if the stains are yours or the city's. Either way, they're permanent. You sit on a broken step, half shaded by a wall that smells like boiled goat and mold. Your stomach tightens in waves. It's been hours since you ate, and even then, it was a fist-sized piece of barley bread that crunched like limestone and went down like a stone tablet. A priest muttered a blessing over it before handing it to you. You're not sure if that made it food or a bribe. Your tongue is sandpaper. You've tried 3 different wells. One had worms, one had a rat floating in it. The third tasted like rust and bad memory. You spat it out, but it didn't leave. It's still with you, lining your teeth like regret. You've stopped asking for help. No one here has time for mercy. Not during pilgrimage week. Not during judgment hour. You asked a merchant for directions. He offered you a map for 2 shekels. You asked a Roman where to find water. He grunted and lifted his whip like a shrug. You asked a priest if suffering was part of purification. He laughed and said, "If it hurts, it's working. You've seen too much." A woman with blood on her hands, dragging a goat that wouldn't walk. A child with eyes too old, begging without sound. A prophet on his knees, screaming into the sky until his voice cracked and his soul followed. A man hanging on a cross. Flies kissing his lips like he was already forgotten. You've heard chants and curses and psalms sung in minor keys. You've heard a widow plead with a money changer, offering her wedding ring for a handful of barley. He took it, gave her half. You've watched the temple gleam under a dying sun, the gold catching the last light like it belonged to God himself. But the closer you got, the more it felt like a trick. You stood at the outer gate and listened to the prayers echo, not up, but sideways, into more stone, into walls thick enough to hold back doubt, maybe even heaven. You've seen men throw coins into jars and walk away taller, as if grace could be measured in metal, as if God keeps a ledger. You've passed a leper asleep under a fig tree, his bell gone, his fingers curled like burned branches. People stepped around him like he was a stain. You've seen too much, and still you understand nothing. The sky darkens, not gently, but all at once, as if the day itself has had enough, as if the sun has turned its face. Clouds roll over Jerusalem like smoke, and for a second you wonder if something is burning. Then you realize it's you, your hope, your body, your belief. You thought you'd come for clarity. You've gotten hunger, splinters, silence. You lean back, dizzy, and watch the city blur. The rooftops lean, the stones hum. You hear a man wail from somewhere down the hill, and then nothing. It's not quiet. It's worse. It's the sound of being forgotten. Someone walks past and doesn't see you. Someone else spits near your leg. You don't flinch. You're too tired for dignity. You wanted the city of God. You got bureaucracy, bile, and blood. You got holiness sold by the ounce and purity taxed by the priesthood. You got lambs screaming at the altar and mothers screaming at the gallows. You got incense in your eyes and dust in your lungs and the constant bone-deep ache of being a stranger in a place that calls itself holy. You thought God lived here. You were wrong. God may have passed through. A whisper, a word, a body broken in front of a crowd that cheered. But he didn't stay. This city doesn't make saints. It makes bones. You curl your legs under you. Try to breathe. Your lips crack. Your knees shake. You count the bruises you didn't have this morning. You're not dramatic. You're not weak. But you know this. You will not last the day. Not here. Not like this. The city doesn't want you. It only wants your offering, your silence, your surrender. And once it has those, it will take the rest. The wind shifts again. Far off, a stone rolls somewhere. But here, in this alley, in this breathless dusk, no one sees you. And for the first time today, that feels honest.